People, Deluded, I'm back again. I'm here with a special guest, former Arsenal player, now currently Bromley player. Josh, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Like we said just before we started recording, I'm doing what I can to keep my mental state and whatnot. Apart from that, there isn't much really I can do beyond that. I am losing it a bit, but yeah, how are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, same in the same boat. Like you said been a good 3-4 weeks now. First couple of weeks were kind of an adaptation. What's going on here?
It's all right. It's all right. I hit a button. But go on.
Yeah. Yeah, a bit of an adaptation. Then last couple of weeks, kind of got myself into a routine, and now it's just about kind of maintenance, if anything. Just trying to keep myself mentally aware, mentally strong, physically, obviously trying to do as much exercise as I can. Trying to find new things to do as well. I've got like more time on my hands than normal, so I was trying to invest time into stuff.
You learn any new hobbies? So you mentioned you've been investing your time into other stuff. You found any new hobbies, learned any new languages yet?
You know what? I did download like a kind of a Spanish app. I haven't really got into it yet. It's more like just reading things, if anything, just like gaining a bit of extra knowledge, and then maybe try, in the next week or so, kind of delve into what we might say hobbies or different things. Just a bit more about a bit of learning at the moment. You know what I mean? So, no, it's good.
That's good, man. I mean, that's something from watching when I used to watch you in Arsenal's academy. I mean, I believe you're 26, I'm 25. So it's like, obviously at the time I wanted to be a footballer. So it's like, I wanted to see what you boys were doing. And I used to bunk school, and you used to strike me as someone, we get onto your footballing ability, but you had a lot of positioning, but you was like a captain. If you wasn't wearing the armband, you had a different sort of mindset. So to hear you like to expand your knowledge and grow beyond just football and stuff, it's encouraging to hear. It's lovely to hear, really, my guy.
Yeah, and I said it's as footballers in general, we have quite a lot of time anyway, probably more than the average person who's kind of working from 9 to 5. Obviously, the hours differ for us.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of like when people say, "Oh, you've been watching like Netflix and all that," yeah, like you do, but we do that kind of normally. So we want to relax, and so it's like now you've got even more time. Now's the time to really kind of, you said, do something a bit outside the box, maybe just like thinking about different things. Or I mean, I'll probably get onto it more later, but at the moment, like, football season's obviously not going on, and there's no guarantee when it'll be back either. So you're kind of looking at other avenues as well, because there's no guarantee that we're going to be able to do it. Because at the end of the day, we've got to make sure that it's safe to do so.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, maybe have to look at other things in terms of maybe like different career paths. Obviously, I'm 26, so I'm not like hitting my 30s, but it's something I've got to look towards the future as well. So maybe now's the time. This gives an opportunity to kind of invest that time into that now.
That makes sense. That makes perfect sense. In relation to your physical fitness, what have you been doing to keep fit?
Quite a lot of running. Got my bike fixed, so I've been on the bike as well. So kind of just getting out. Obviously, ideally, you want to stay at home, follow the government guidelines, but so my garden ain't that big, can't be running around it. Drive myself.
Definitely can't cycle.
Yeah, so trying to get out like in the safest way possible. It's like I said, running, cycling. Managed to kind of make myself a gym area in the back garden. So
I had that. I had that.
Conditioning, fitness in terms of just maintaining my strength. Obviously, it's difficult when you haven't got a fully kitted out gym. Can't really pumping loads of iron, so it's been like body weight sort of stuff. Really trying to improve, core base, improve like mobility, proprioception, little things like that. Important, really. Just my general movements.
Trying to keep, I guess you're more or less, you know that you kind of can't do much, so you're just trying to keep ticking over sort of thing, just trying to do what you can. That makes perfect sense. You said it earlier, you touched on the season, and I don't know if this is how you feel, but you sounded pessimistic. Do you personally feel the season in relation to your league might get scrapped, or are you hopeful we'll play again? Obviously safety first and in line with guidelines and whatnot.
It's funny you mention it. I think it's just been announced in the last hour that the season's been cancelled
Oh wow.
at National League level. So, to be honest, I think it was going that way anyway from the conversations I've been having with people the last 2-3 weeks.
Mm.
I'll be honest, it should have been made a bit earlier. If any, well, actually, should have been made way earlier.
Way earlier at all levels, in my opinion.
Yeah, because clubs need a plan. You know what I mean? And uh, I think it's a lack of it's people not taking responsibility. Like the governing bodies, they don't want to be held to account for anything. But at the end of the day, I don't think anyone's going to complain if some seasons are cancelled, because at the end, it's not the most important thing. Obviously, people
Yeah,
losing lives.
lives are at risk. Yeah.
Yeah, lives are at risk. Don't get me wrong, I miss football as much as the next man, but you've got to be sensible at the end of the day. So, yeah, I think that decision being made today, the only decision to be made is how things are going to end, because obviously there's promotions, relegations.
Yeah.
That's yet to be decided. But so, yeah, I know like now this season ain't going to be played out. Obviously disappointing. But let's say, like we've mentioned, there's bigger things going on at the moment.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned it earlier, and I wanted to get back to it. Obviously, as a player, how would you feel from a player's perspective at the level you're playing? In terms of, I'm sure everyone's got one eye on how they can secure their future, what club potentially they're going to be playing at. Do they have a future at their club? Again, I guess we still don't know the financial impact, but at that level as a player, what are the sort of things going through your head and potential concerns?
It's big, really. I think a lot of contracts are ending next week, so there's going to be people technically without jobs, if anything. So it's very worrying, really, because clubs are in a position at the moment where they can't plan for the future, because I said, although the season has been cancelled as of today, there's still things to finalise, and clubs usually around this time, even before, are planning for next season, but they haven't had that time to plan. So I think there's going to be a lot of players in the same position where they don't even know what's going to be happening. And yeah, no, I think especially at this level, probably doesn't get enough coverage. Obviously, the coverage is in the Premier League, and the difference is there's players there on 4 or 5 year deals, and even if they're not,
Wages.
even the free agents. And actually, I'm not going to get into like the money side of things, but
Of course.
even the free agents, they should have financial security. Really, if you've been playing in the Premier League for a period of time, you're going to have some form of financial security. I know it's all relevant to like lifestyles and that, but you'd hope players in the Premier League, like free agents who might be struggling in the same position as players lower down the pyramid, they're going to have more financial security. So like people at my level at the moment got mortgages to pay, sort of bills and stuff, which is still like part of everyday life, regardless of like the pandemic. And it's going to be difficult. And I think even past that, you look in the summer, if football, or said when football season may or may not restart, there's going to be a massive, how to put it, like a rat race. Really, it's going to be difficult. I think I do fear for it in that sense, and that's why, again, like I mentioned, I'm kind of investing in myself at the moment, because I know there's going to be no guarantee for people to have careers that last beyond kind of next season, because clubs are going to have to cut costs, so that means squads might get smaller. There's going to be players out of contracts. There'll be a pyramid effect. So if that happens in the Premier League, then
it just snowballs and snowballs.
Snowballs down, and it's going to be difficult for people. I don't know if people have really grasped that yet. I think they're too busy thinking about the here and now of this season and how it's going to finish, who's going to win leagues and stuff like that. But I don't know. I'm not really a pessimist by nature, but I think you've got to look at it. You've got to be realistic.
Everything.
Yeah. So hopefully not. Hopefully things can get sorted. But yeah, no, I think people have got to be aware of that. And hopefully the governing bodies can see that as well and help the clubs lower down the pyramid, because that's the one thing about England that's better than a lot of countries, is that we have got such a strong tier, like we've got
Yeah,
some good tiers of football
there's a
that can,
structure and whatnot.
the
Proper
structure's
sort of
so
ball.
good, and it's kind of, they feed into each other. As much as the Premier League might like to think they are their own entity and they do bring in like a load of money, at the end of the day, like British football wouldn't be the same if it was like another country where there's just one top league. I know players I've played with from different countries can't believe the fact that in England you can get like 5,000-6,000 at a fifth tier game. It's a
Wow.
joke.
Yeah. That's yeah. I
So, yeah.
mean, yeah, and it's a weird one because you're a year older than me at 26. Obviously, I'm not a footballer in any standard unless you talk about Power League. But if I put myself in your shoes at 26, it must be a weird one because, like you said, you've got your eye open. You've probably always had your eye open to different things and in relation to a career. But it's a weird one because it's like you've got a number of playing years left. You're kind of in your prime and whatnot. You've still got a lot to offer physically. And I guess, are you kind of fighting with the devil in that your heart is telling you, I wouldn't say quit football in any, because no, I don't think you will, but does it tell you to kind of be prepared to, I don't know, sit a 3 months, a 6 months, a 12 months period out while you assess your options?
Yeah, I mean that's the difficult thing. I think when you're young as well, when you're young, you don't have these experiences that you may have experienced before, and you're a bit maybe naive to the fact. And then when you're older, I think you're probably more ready for it. I kind of in the middle, I'm probably a bit more prepared for it than most people my age, because I've just experienced, like, I know how volatile football can be. It's one of the most competitive industries out there. You've got to be aware that you never know when kind of your sell by date is, if you know what I mean. And it's not down to a lot of the time talent or anything. It's a game. It's a very subjective game. And there's a lot of situational stuff that can make or break a career, if you know what I mean. So you've got to be aware of it anyway, regardless of whether a pandemic's sweeping through the globe. You've got to have that awareness about you anyway, I think. So yeah, it's difficult, but at the same time, look, hopefully with the measures in place, something can get started back, maybe like I said, in the timelines of next season, when it was supposed to start, or maybe around them times, and hopefully they said most clubs can survive. I think there will be it will change football at most levels, but hopefully we can get back to some sort of normality. Yeah, no, definitely got that awareness. Obviously, I don't want it to happen because my first focus is my football, and it's like my first love and that. But yeah, you've got to be aware. Got to be aware of that, them sort of things. Nothing's certain. It's the same as if I was to be playing and you're going for a challenge and get a bad injury.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's we've taken a different sort of term, but from a sporting perspective, purely prior to the season stopping, how was you feeling? How the season went for you as a collective and as an individual in relation to Bromley and whatnot?
As a collective, we started really well. I think we were unbeaten for the first 14 or 15 games. We started very good. We were grinding out results, to be fair, without playing really that well. We just had a knack of winning games. And the beginning of the seasons, I don't know if you know the structure. You play a load of games in August and September. So you kind of play a quarter of the season by September, which is pretty ridiculous, but it can work well in both ways, really. If you get on a good run, you can rack up some good points on the board. And then, to be fair, I mentioned this with someone last week. We had a lot of kind of things that happened to us to kind of not destabilise the team, but they're kind of you hit a few icebergs, like road bumps on the way during the season, and these were quite big. We had, like, a couple key players. One had to retire. One got a gambling ban, and it kind of had a little effect. But we were in and around like the top five up until kind of Christmas, and then from January to where we are now, since we last played, it just went on a really bad run. Probably one of the worst I've ever been on in my career. We lost 8 or possible 9 games. We took 1 point from possible 27, like really, really bad form. But funnily enough, we weren't playing that bad. It was just a bit. it's just a bit of a mad one. And that's the thing with football. It's
Funny old game.
a funny old game that there's never a truer saying, really. And especially in the National League, I'll say this more than most leagues. It's one of the toughest leagues because on any given day, like you might as well just flip a coin to see who wins. As mad it is, there's no consistency in that league, and the teams that are the most consistent will win it, and they don't always have to have the most quality. As long as you can just churn out performances, you'll get points on the board. And we weren't even playing that bad, to be honest. We're putting in some good performances and losing, and to be fair, the run we had as well. At the 9 games, I think 7 or 8 of them were all teams around us. So they were tough games, so to speak. But obviously, it doesn't excuse like the points total we took, and it kind of derailed us a bit.
Mm-hmm.
We were sitting in mid-table, but saying that, there was still 8 games to go. We had teams in the bottom half of the table. We could have gone on a nice run. I think we've had
run, yeah.
And we could have got in the playoffs, I think, still. So roller coaster probably would be the term to describe the season just gone. On a personal level, obviously I was at Cheltenham to start the season with, and I left. Obviously, new manager come in, had to leave. Did I want to leave to begin with? Not really, no. But that's part of football. When a new manager comes in, he brings in new players, and I had to leave anyway for my own good. Come back to a club that I already knew very well, so I was very comfortable in my environment. But I hadn't really had a great pre-season just because of the situation I'd been in my last club, where the manager had come in, didn't really want me to begin with, treated me all right, and then by the end, the treatment I had was quite poor. So my pre-season wasn't ideal. So I come into Bromley, where really they'd hit the ground running, and I had to kind of play in a little bit of catch up. And like I said, the National League is different, even in the style of play as well. It's a lot more of a battle, so you have to kind of adapt your style of play. While League One, it's a lot quicker. The ball's probably a bit more football played, and National League. It's not saying there's too much less quality in it. I think there's some players loads of players that easily play higher, but it's just the nature of the game. That level is different, so you kind of adapting. So it took me a good month or so really to hit where I was performing well, and then I got to Christmas, and I was playing really well, back to like what I'd say was, well, I'm playing at my best. And then January, obviously, we started hitting the bad run of form, and I said we weren't even playing that bad. It just weren't getting
a result.
Yeah, but on a personal level, I was like, yeah, I was doing well, scoring a few goals here and there. Yeah, so it was a shame really, because I was looking forward to the end of the season. But like I said, it is what it is.
I think he did well to bounce back from that setback. Sorry, in that, you know, the manager's told you that you're not part of his plan. You've dropped down a division or two, and you've had a promising season. And obviously, as a team, as a person, sadly, your season's been halted because of what's happening in terms of the worldwide epidemic. But in relation to, I've always wanted to ask someone, or a footballer, it's like, obviously, you've got to be professional. A game is a funny old game of opinions. But how does it feel knowing that, to a degree, no matter how much you train or how well you train, obviously you have to be professional, but knowing that you're just not going to get an opportunity under a manager?
Yeah, it is difficult. You just come to a realisation that sometimes is how it plays out. And therefore, you've got to do what you can to kind of manipulate a situation in your favour, if anything. One good thing about the manager in question is that he was honest with me from the get-go, really. So yeah, there's nothing worse than kind of being played along by some managers. He'll tell you one thing and do another. That's probably the worst thing. I prefer someone who's just going to be straight, and he was, to be fair. What he probably weren't straight with me was the kind of way he was going to treat me during the time that I was there. That was quite poor from him, but look, I appreciated his honesty in the end, because it gave me a clear direction of what I needed to do, really, which was get out and sort myself out, if anything. But yeah, no, I do. It can be the case where it's difficult. I think if you flip it on the other side, if you put a manager's hat on, they just don't have enough time these days. Really, the
Yeah.
turnover of managers is ridiculous as it is. It's a matter of games now. If you don't get a win in 4 or 5 games, you're under pressure. So at the same time, like from a player's point of view, yeah, players should be given time to prove themselves. But and from the manager side of things, I don't think they have the time to allow players to. They need results here and now. So if they're not really, if you're not in their plans, then it is difficult. It is difficult. I've seen many examples where some players can, and I've done it myself, where I've proved managers wrong, but it don't happen overnight. It happens over a couple of months, and then by a couple of months, they might have had a couple of defeats, and they're out the door, and then you're back to square one again. So yes, that is life though as a footballer. Really, you've got to try and it's all about opportunity in this, and you're trying to take it as quick as possible.
Yeah, I mean, football it's crazy, but I always say football, it's a lovely game, but it's a fickle old game. It's a funny old game of opinions. They can all flip at a hat, and it's just about proving people wrong. But if we go back to your early beginnings as a professional footballer, or as a footballer in general, when did you start playing football, and what led to getting picked up by Arsenal?
I started young, like 3, 4, not just kicking about really, like local like camps or clubs. Didn't really think anything of it. Just it was more out of fun, just probably to get me out of the house and sort of use energy as like when I was young. And then at school, I played like a local group. Again, it was more for fun, but one of the coaches had like a link to Arsenal. Then I played a game against Arsenal, and we got absolutely like battered. And I thought to myself, I'm miles away from this. Like these guys are a joke. Even as like a 6-year-old, like I thought in my head, these guys are unbelievable. I'm nowhere near it. And then all of us, like so 2 weeks down the line, I got a call from Arsenal saying, "No, do you want to come down and trial down at Hale End?" And I was probably about 7 or 8 at this time. And obviously, I'm an Arsenal fan. I always have been since I was young. So it kind of was like a dream come true. And then gradually, as I trained more with these guys, you kind of get up to their level. And I thought to myself, actually, I'm pretty good. Like, and then I think I spent a year at under 8s, and then you sign your first like forms at 9, and then and that was it really. Just I got to a point where I'd been training with these kids week in, week out, and kind of brought me up to that level. And then I knew once I was at that level, I could push on. And then from 9, and then it's just that natural path. From 9, you get to kind of 11. Then you go, you're kind of in, you go to senior school like 12, and then you kind of build up until like, obviously the next real big decisions when you're 16.
15, 16, yeah.
So yeah, no, it was that was kind of my early beginnings, if anything.
Was Arsenal the only club you ever went on trial on or was part of in terms of your youth? Was it just always a case of Arsenal?
Arsenal was the only club, yeah, really, because I said I played that game and that was it, really. I was picked up from an early age. I know West Ham were interested in me. Obviously, they're another kind of local club. And a couple of coaches from Arsenal actually went to West Ham when I was young, like 8 or 9. But like, I'm a fan as well. You have that kind of bond with the club anyway. When you're young, you only kind of see it like that. When you're older, you're a bit more. You see football as it is, really, and there's not saying there's no loyalty, but like at the end of the day, it's your life and your job. So, for example, like, I'm a massive Arsenal fan, but if I was given an opportunity to play for Spurs, I kind of wouldn't turn it down. If you know what I mean.
Grudge for that at all? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and obviously some people like the tribalism in football, some kind of delude some people into thinking that. But like at the end of the day, that's football. I know loads of people that are fans of other clubs, but would like click of the fingers play for the rival club. But when I was younger, I thought to myself, no, I don't want to go to West Ham. Like, I'm an Arsenal fan. So yeah,
that's good, man. It's nice to. What I liked about that is how you kind of psyched yourself out at the beginning, but you realise that you're actually levels, and that brings me on to my next question. Obviously, being at Arsenal, it's a lovely thing. Like you said, you're a fan, you're training and playing, and you've got the hope of being a professional footballer. These times Highbury, and then later on the Emirates. But does it always feel like you're a case on trial, like you're always on trial? Because there's always question marks, both from the outside. Oh, he plays for Arsenal, he's got to be good. There's always you're fighting, not fighting, but you're kind of competing with your teammates. And a club like Arsenal, from all over London and surrounding areas, always trying to bring the best in and trial the best. Did you feel like you was always on trial? Was there moments you felt you might have got released? Was there times where you just felt, you know what, in a healthy way, I feel like the best player in the world, sort of thing?
When I was younger, that I think it's like the euphoria of it kind of masks that. If anything, like you said, you're only young, kind of unaware of a lot of things. So to begin with, it was about getting to the level that I needed, and then once I was at the level, it was about pushing on. If anything, trying to just be the best and enjoying it gives you, obviously, that, yeah, it does give you that. And you got to remember, at the time when I was there, Arsenal weren't the Arsenal now. They were the Arsenal that you're talking
Proper, like,
like you're talking that era really. So you weren't just playing for like any club, you know what I mean? And also at the time they had renowned for like producing players. Around the time where kind of Cesc was making his debut, like people like that, and you think I'm at a big club here, so it gives you that kind of sense of like, you know, that you're decent if you're playing at that level. You know what I mean? It gives you not arrogance but confidence, if anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, and at the same time, like you said, you feel on trial. I think that's just football. Like, if you're a competitor, you know you've got to perform every game, whether it be in training. And like, don't get me wrong, there's days where you think you can't do as much as maybe you did before, but everything you do has got to be to a level, because that's just what the club will instill in you. And you know, if you don't do it, then someone else will. And that's just got to come from within sometimes. Did I always feel under pressure? Yeah, but it's like, without that pressure, you're not going to improve. You know what I mean? You're just going to just relax, not do what you need to do, and then you'll be out the door. But I think personally, I was never really under pressure to get kind of released. I was always like up there in my age groups. It was more about kind of pushing into the next age group and the age group above that, if you know what I mean. That was the aim for me, really. I was never really under that pressure, but at the same time, I know people that were, and it's done them well, and they've gone on to have great careers. So there's nothing wrong with having. In fact, I sometimes think I'd rather have had the setback when I was younger, and I had quite a lot of setbacks more when I was kind of 18, 19, 20. But I know people had setbacks when I was 11, 12, and they got them out of the way and learned from them quick, and it kind of it put them in good stead for the future.
You mentioned setbacks. Could you expand on some, without obviously at your discretion?
Like, injuries were a big thing. When I signed pro, I had a really good first year. I was playing in the reserves regularly. I signed my first pro. I was about 17, 18, and then my second year, my first year as a pro, I just had a load of injuries that really kind of set me back, stalled me. And I think in football, especially at a top club, like, where everything's moving so quick, like 2 months out can kind of kill you. It can be a long time, because all of a sudden, like, other people are developing, pushing in, and yeah, that killed me a bit. And then obviously, then that led to being released, and that was they're like then setbacks, and then you kind of you have to learn from them quicker than I suppose than when you were younger, because when you were younger, there's still time to develop.
Yeah.
You're kind of learning the game, if anything. Well, when you're kind of 18, 19, you have to kind of be ready, I think. And if you're not ready, then you're just going to gradually kind of get fall low down, or you have to learn kind of an alternative route. So yeah, they're like the main setbacks, really, if anything. In terms of an Arsenal perspective, yeah, definitely injuries in my second year, going full time. That was a big thing, really. And it kind of it more stalled me at Arsenal, if anything. Not so much my development. Everyone goes through injuries. I was still getting better as a player. But in terms of Arsenal, my first year, I kind of pushed myself out there. Did really well. probably there's a chance maybe get involved in the first team more. But then my second year, just said I was out for a good few months. I had like all sorts of problems, and it kind of went back to square one a bit.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I can definitely understand how, you know, many talented players of 2 months could put somebody off and things like that. One thing I liked to what you said in the previous question is you mentioned how you wasn't phased in a positive way. You wasn't phased. You was always trying to push on. Because looking at that age group, I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure there was you, there was Callum Webb, there was Zach Ansah. I can't remember his last name, but there was Samir. There was some really talented players. Did you feel, not in addition to yourself, obviously, but some more could potentially be in a very age group to progress to first team and have some great careers at a top level in the league, in the Premier League and whatnot?
Yeah, look, there's always good players, and so our age group was I think our age group, we were a very good team. Like in that, you know, we used to win quite a few things, especially when we went away.
Pre-season tournaments, of course.
Yeah, like obviously our group, we used to play a lot with sort of Bennett, Phoebe, Chuks, and Iki, like Nico Yonaris, all like very, very good players. And we were a good team. Individually wise, there were other age groups who probably had more outstanding individuals. And I think at the end of the day, that's, if you're going to talk to like an academy, what they'd rather prefer, I think they'd rather prefer the age groups that have the standout individuals. Because at the end of the day, that's what the clubs want. They want players to break into the first team because it gives them an asset in the first team where they could either keep or sell. I think what our age group maybe suffered from a little bit was we were a very good team. We used to win most of our games. So we had a lot of talented players in our team, but maybe we didn't have someone of like the elite, like said the year above had like Bennett, maybe Chuks. Year above that had Jack. It was like unbelievable, and then the year above that was the team that won the Youth Cup, and they had like loads. But that's not to say like we didn't have some really good players, and a few of them like have gone on to have like good careers. A few of them maybe haven't, but it wasn't always down to kind of a lack of talent. If anything, that it's just sometimes it's how football goes. And I said it's such a competitive environment. Little things that sometimes I think there's like it's just different pathways. It can be a bit of a roll of the dice sometimes with certain players. There's some players that are going to be destined to make it, like Jack Wilshere.
Born to play football.
When I was young, I would have hung my hat on him playing in the first team. He was that good. The only thing that would ever stop him was injuries, and like in later on in his career, it has probably stopped him playing from the top level. But he's still always going to be a Premier League player just because he's that good. Yeah. There's other players who are really good, but a lot of it can be decided on different things. Alex Iwobi's one. I always thought was a good player. Did I ever think he'd be playing at the top level? Maybe not. I thought he'd play at a good level, but he got his opportunity, he took it, and he's now a Premier League player. Like that's how it can happen.
That makes sense. In relation to you, we're talking about players. Is there, if I had to pressure you into one, what's the best player you've played with and against?
Best player I've ever played with, Jack would be up there. Like I said, he's one of the best players I've ever played with. Unbelievable. Like even when he was younger, the guy was a joke. He still is. Like if he didn't get injured now, he could easily play at like a Barca, Real. He's that good.
Yeah,
I remember when we was younger, we used to go away on tour and we played a final and we got absolutely battered by Ajax, like 4-5-0, and he got man of the match. Like it was literally him versus them. Like we were just standing basically watching him. He was that good. He just had everything technically. Like could carry the ball, pass. He was so strong for his size as well. I've seen him floor like people 3 times his size. He's that strong on the ball. He's definitely up there. But the most talented player I've ever played was Ravel Morrison. I'm telling you, this guy was different. Like how he used to play. I've never like Jack was unbelievable, but this guy was the only player I've ever seen where I thought like I don't believe in like God or anything, but he was given a talent by someone because he could do things I've never seen before. And it's not even like he'd do something like a foot roll that we could all do. I'd do it. and I probably get tackled or it might work. He'd do it. People would be falling on the floor, and I'm thinking like, how did he do that? He was that good. Obviously, I think he's at Sheffield United now, so he's
Yeah,
still kind of made it as a Premier League player, which is scandalous, really, because of everything. And like, I can't really talk for him. He had a lot of issues off the pitch. And to be fair, I personally found him a really nice guy. But his talent has still got him there. But if he'd have, say, he could have been anything he wanted to be. He was that good. Like one of those players you couldn't give a position to. You just say, just go out and play, and he'd just run the game for you. He'll pick it up at left back, pick it up centre back, pick it up number 10. That he's that good. So yeah, him really, in terms of talent, is the best player I've ever seen. And I think Fergie said as well when he was coming through at Man United, best player he's seen come through the academy. Just a shame, like his career
worked out,
worked out as it maybe should have been, yeah.
And your best player you played against?
Against? Tough one, really. Trying to think someone who's given me the toughest time. Played against some good players, to be fair, really good players.
You're not limited to one. If it's too tricky, you can give some mentions and nominations to a few.
Trying to think back in the day who gave us a proper tough time. Tough games we used to have were like, I don't know. I have to think about that one, really.
No worries, man.
Yeah, there's some I've played against. It's like when you think about it, it's like players you've played against that, and you think automatically like players you've matched up with. But then I've played against players who I haven't really had to play against, like on the pitch, match up with them, but they've like totally like killed us. And I think to myself, like I didn't have to play against you directly, but like you've absolutely like ruined us. Like you're a joke. Individual battle, like it's hard, really. Most of the time, I like to think like I give it a good goal. You come out on top, but yeah, I'm trying to think. Back in the day, like youth team days, Josh McEachran was a joke at Chelsea. He was unbelievable. Yeah, we played a youth cup game against him, and he was really tough. He was so skillful on the ball. He was good. But I'm trying to think of even some of the foreign teams we used to play against, and if there's any like now. Yeah, the Dutch teams are always pretty good. You just pass the ball, pass and move. Like you couldn't really get near them. Like last season, I played against Swansea in the FA Cup. They were good. Like Leroy Fair in the midfield, he was decent. Trying to think of like recent games really. Yeah, Swansea were good. Yeah, they said that like, Leroy Fair was good. Matt Grimes, like holding midfielder, he's good at that level. So more so like they get the ball and they know what they're doing as a team. Like individually, one weren't really taking you for a fall. It was like just pass and move. Like all well structured as a team. I think it's difficult unless you're playing like as a fullback where your game's very much one-on-one. It's hard to like say, oh, this player gave me a really tough time, because when you're in midfield, sometimes it can be against like numerous sort of players. Yeah.
That's all right, man. I mean, you've said some names that I've expected you to say in the reference points. Like, I mean, in line with Jack Wilshere and Ravel Morrison, Josh McEachran had a lot of ability as well. So it's expected you say that. But we can't kind of speak about Arsenal and not speak about Arsene Wenger. You lightly touched on it. You said a couple of times you got to, like a number of you got to participate in first team training. How often did you get to do that? And did you have any conversations with Wenger, and what was he like, if anything?
Yeah, like it was like kind of semi-regular. We'd go there. It was more sometimes to just be like bodies, if anything, and that's fair enough. Like that, they had big fixtures and they needed like to do like shape play or something like that. Sometimes it would just be to fill the numbers up, but you take that all day long because you're going up there and you're playing with some unbelievable players. And I said we mentioned before, not the Arsenal of like the Invincibles era, but you still got some players at the top level like Cesc. I said Nasri was probably there at the time. RVP, like, on the technical level, they were a joke. So just to see them firsthand, train with them, realise kind of the levels you had to get to. I mean, another one who might not get mentioned as much was Rosicky. He was
He was a joke.
Unbelievable player. Injuries obviously killed him quite a lot at Arsenal, but guy like couldn't run. You'd like do sprints with him and he'd be slow, and then he'd get the ball and you couldn't catch up with him. It was like weird. So Cesc was a joke. Just did everything. He was just, you knew he was 5-6 steps ahead of you, and so you had to kind of read him before he got the ball. And like players like that, you can just tell why they're. He's a World Cup winner. Like, says it all really. Van Persie probably the sweetest left foot I've ever seen. Finishing wise, just used to bury the ball like stanch, hit side nettings all the time. Just hit the ball so clean. So yeah, no, that was the best part really, just being able to see firsthand what it's like at the top level, because the margins aren't massive throughout the levels, I think, but there's like from the top 6, there's a big like European level. You see like why they're so good, like you appreciate it, because on the TV like anyone can be a pundit, yeah, and it's all relevant to like what you watch. So someone might be having a bad game, and there's players that fans used to slate all the time. I mean, I know he's the gaffer now, and he was good when he was at Arsenal. To be fair, like Arteta, I don't think fans were ultimately having him. But when you train with him, you realise how good he was. Like he'd be in a keep ball and he wouldn't lose the ball. So you think to yourself, this guy, like, obviously he's a very good Premier League player, but the fans like kind of not having him. But I'm training with him and I'm thinking, yeah, he's a joke.
I don't know what you're talking about, sort of thing. He's a baller.
Yeah, like they'll be slating people like, can't even remember like players at the time. So like Per Mertesacker, they used to think, oh, he's too slow, but he was positionally so good, like he would never get caught out. When you see him firsthand, you think, yeah, he is so slow, but he reads the game so well. But obviously, he's going to get exposed sometimes when you're playing against Wayne Rooney or players like that, because they're at that level as well. So it's all relevant. You don't realise how good these players really are. So no, that was so good. Like some of the players, I mean, they're just a joke. Like Cazorla, joke.
It must have been a dream to watch him in.
Unbelievable. Never seen someone so good off both feet. I don't think he knew what foot he was. It was unbelievable how good he was, and he's still playing now, even after 2 years out of an Achilles injury. It just shows you that when you've got that kind of level of ability, you can play at that level, whatever, really. So no, some real good experiences, if anything, that no one can ever kind of take away from you.
Yeah, man, that sounds, I mean, just from hearing you speak on it, it sounds like such the experience. Regarding coaches, what coaches would you say were an influence on you in your time at Arsenal, or coaches in general? And yeah, again, did you have any conversations with Wenger? Did he give you any pointers or anything like that? Did he just an arm around the shoulder or anything of such?
In terms of the boss, he was very calm. He had a very almost like a headmaster kind of. He had that authority about him without having to say anything. I think just the level of respect everyone had for him was brilliant. He demanded that just because of how successful he was at Arsenal, and I think the players really loved him. I could see that when he used to enter a room, there was like a quiet, but it wasn't like a scared quiet. It was just like a level of respect that people had. In terms of personal conversations, very few. I think he was obviously most of his conversations have been directed to the first team players, which is fair enough because they're under his remit. In terms of the young players, it would be polite, but it wouldn't be anything too personal. Maybe some of the players that have broken in, but most of the us players, it would just be like a hello or how are you doing? Like it's just a nice guy, really. In terms of cultures, it's good. Like I said, something like Arsenal is good to be at because you're exposed to so many different cultures. if you know what I mean. It was you had players coming in from all over the world, so you kind of experience a bit of everything, which is good. How football's played. Obviously, Arsenal very much played kind of a continental style play of football, which is good in one sense because I think it teaches you to be a lot better on the ball. At the same time, I think it can be a hindrance to a lot of the young players there because when you drop down into like the lower leagues of football, I think it doesn't prepare you as well for that. But your foundations are good because technically you have to be a good player to play at that club.
Do you feel you struggled with that?
I struggled when I first moved to Nottingham Forest. The game was different. Like I'm trying to get the ball off the back four, and the ball's going over your head. And
oh wow, culture shock
like that. Yeah. You think to yourself, and to be fair, at Arsenal, I was probably one of the more physical players. So that just shows you, like, they don't prepare you that well. And I think that's where the loan system can make or break some players at Arsenal. And I don't know what it's like now, but I tended to feel that a lot of players that went on loan at Arsenal struggled.
I'd agree.
And I think that's why, because you're literally geared up to play a certain way that not many teams in the country, let alone Championship, League One, League Two, play. So you get players who, ability-wise, will go into a League One club and they'll be by far the best player. But ability, it don't really mean anything if you can't get a result on a Saturday, can't get 3 points. Because there'll be some players who know the game more, can like run more, and to be fair, they'll get results. While the player from Arsenal, who technically is on a different level, might not get that result. So, in a way, whose responsibility is that? Is it the player to go out on loan and try and adapt as quick as they can, or is there an onus on Arsenal, the club, to try and at the end of the day, Arsenal, what they want is they want players to come into their first team, so they're going to preach that style of play, but not everyone's going to get in that first team. So I think with the academy, sometimes there needs to be that little bit of kind of a hybrid model, if anything, where it just teaches them a bit of everything. You've got to prepare players for any, because even at Arsenal, the culture at the club is to play good football, and the last few managers have encouraged that. But there might be one time where a manager comes in and it's a bit more direct. You've seen it at Barcelona. Obviously, Guardiola left. Luis Enrique come in and they had the front three at MSN and they played a bit more direct. Yeah. So even little subtle changes, I think the academy's got to prepare players better for that sometimes. But I understand where they're coming from when they've got a first team that like play football, possession-based football, and they've got to prepare players for that, and that's fair enough. But the culture side of thing was brilliant. Like you meet so many different people from different countries, and it's great to see like what they value. I think a lot of the foreign players that come over, like there's an obsession with the Champions League with them. I think in England our obsession is the Premier League, if that makes sense.
That 100% makes sense.
But the foreign lads that used to come over, they used to like on a Friday. I think the draws for the Champions League knockouts usually done on a Friday morning.
Yeah,
and they would be like finishing training, running in to see the Champions League draw. And us English lads would be like, Champions League, like don't get me wrong, it's the Premier Cup competition in Europe, but I'm not that bothered about it. But they were, it was funny like how just you pick up different things, and it's funny when they pick up like the English culture as well. Like, I think obviously he's quite well known about it now. Like Hector Bellerin, he was in my team. He's very much kind of an adopted Englishman now, and you could see that when I was in the youth team, he was kind of picking up things. It was quite funny, to be fair. He's got that funny, like kind of half Cockney accent now, but that was coming on early days, and it's credit to them really that. I think if many of us English boys went to a different country, we'd struggle. But I think he come in with John Terrell, and John could speak good English because his family were from England. Hector picked up really quick, to be fair to him, and he's top kid, man. I'm glad he's like in the first team now. He's a good lad.
Good stuff. In terms of your coaches in your career, like who's, even if there was at Arsenal, they don't have to be. Is there any coaches you feel have really influenced your career, really had a massive effect on you?
Yeah, most of the best ones have come from Arsenal, to be fair to them. Early doors, even the ones at the academy, like Roy Massey, Steve Leonard, Danny Buck, Ozzy, Ibanji, they were all like coming through. They were massive, like in terms of just developing you as a player. Um, and like I said, a few of them are still active now. I think Danny's still at Arsenal doing the young lads, and he was brilliant. Like technically, even when I was young, he got me like to a level where I thought I was miles off it. He got me to a level where I was comfortable technically on the ball at a young age. Um, and then obviously he's still at the club now. Steve Bold, he's one of the best coaches I've ever had in terms of he got some of the best football out of me, and he's brilliant, Boldy, because he preaches. He loves like good football. Like he used to preach Barcelona like you wouldn't believe it. Loved watching them play. He used to make us watch Barca. This was the years under Pep when they were a joke. But he's an old-fashioned centre half. But he can play. But his values are like old-fashioned as well. Like you got to compete. You got to run. You got to be a bit nasty. But he loves good football as well. So that's what I loved about him. Like he had that kind of hybrid thing about him where he weren't just like play for playing's sake. Like you got to earn the right to play. But when you do play, I want you playing this kind of good
Champagne
football.
football.
Yeah, and he's just a top guy as well. Really hard, but like once you got over, like he give you a battering sometimes, and he gave a few of the boys like batterings. But what like when you got to know him, he was a proper nice guy. And obviously he's still there now. I think he's back doing the 23s.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see what he does. Really, I think he'd make a good manager personally. I think he'd be good in a management environment because he's got that about him where he could kind of read the riot act, and he was good at managing the young kids, and he knows his football as well. But look, he's at Arsenal still. Like he's been there as a player. He's a top coach. Neil Bamford was another one, really good.
Mm.
Again, hard but really fair. And Neil was a top bloke, top coach. Yeah, they're all like massive influences really. Arsenal. They were the quality of coaching there has always been good. I think it's just like now football's even more competitive.
Yeah.
So whether the coaches stick around or they get other jobs, it's like the same with players. Like it's mad.
In relation to your Arsenal career, how did you find out that you was going to leave the club? How did it make you feel? And like in that moment, what steps did you take to move forward?
I pretty much knew. I think I was 18 or 19. I pretty much saw the writing on the wall. I weren't stupid. I'd had my second year. I'd had loads of injuries. Third year, I think Steve and Neil, who I'd got on really well with and played well under. I think they moved up to the first team. That was their first year with Wenger in the first team. And there was all a bit of change around the academy, to be fair. And it was just one of those that I just thought, look, my time here is kind of dwindling, if anything. Um, it was 23. It was the first year of 23s football. So I thought to myself, look, I don't really want to be staying around. I played like quite a lot of reserve games. It's now 23s. It's kind of you got to try and be in the first team now. And I just thought I'm not near the first team, if anything. So it's about trying to just prepare best for it. I kind of knew it. Obviously, when it happens, it's sad because I'd spent majority of my life there, if anything. So yeah, just kind of tried to get myself ready for it, if anything, and that would be like, where's your next step? But yeah, it was difficult. It's like anything, like leaving home, or it's going to eventually happen, but it's kind of sad when it does. If you know what I mean.
Yeah. How difficult was that process? Just by expanding a bit more, purely because was there any pressures when you went on trial at other clubs, assuming you did, it wasn't just Nottingham Forest? Because again, football can be a bit fickle in that they just see you as this player who's come from Arsenal, so you've got to be the bee's knees, whether that's players and coaches and whatever.
Yeah, no, it can. It's difficult, and not. It can be a double-edged sword, really. Like obviously they expect from you, but I'm always used to expectation. Sometimes it works as an advantage. They see you've come from Arsenal, so they know you've got pedigree. So it kind of gets you a foot in the door in some places. And I think with Forest, that was true of that. So all you've really got to do then is just perform and then kind of back it up. And I did that, and I sort of earned sort of a deal there. But it was difficult more in other ways, is that I'd never really been without a club before. So that was new. And then you realise really the harsh reality of football is you can be forgotten as quickly as you can be remembered.
Yeah,
And
again, that's why I say it's fickle.
My last year, like, I hadn't really said I played 23s, but I hadn't really done anything in regards to like senior football, and I needed to make that mark, if anything. And that's the most difficult part with youth football and stuff. You can make a name for yourself, but I think the main thing is that transition to senior football. And there's plenty of players I've seen that prolific at youth level, and then they find it hard to make that step up.
Yeah, you're 100% right on that. So why was Nottingham Forest the only club that you was trialing out or interested in, and why did you pick them in particular?
That summer, I think I went to Cheltenham to begin with in League Two, and I did really well in pre-season. And again, it was going back to that. I just wanted to play men's football. I went there, and I could have signed there really if I'd have waited it out. Maybe it might have not been a good thing at the end of the day, but they just wanted me to look at me for a bit longer. But I knew myself that I kind of proved my worth. Like, I did well in pre-season. I come there, I was the fittest by a mile. Played well in a couple of pre-season games they had. But it's like anything in pre-season, sometimes I think managers take advantage of the young players coming in on trial because it adds a number, or they feel like they can take their time. I just thought we weren't really having any of it, so I left. I just didn't, and I thought to myself that I don't want to waste my time. And then I went. I can't even remember that well. I was at Millwall for a bit because I knew the manager there, and I could have signed there actually, but they took too long with sorting out a contract. And Forest come with an offer, to be fair, and I kind of just wanted to get sorted by then. It got to a point where I just wanted to get signed somewhere. Never been in that position before, so yeah, signed for Forest. And to be fair, obviously people of my generation won't be aware as much, but they're a massive club. Like, they've won European Cup twice, so they're a huge club. So when I got there, I realised obviously how big they were. Club, the facilities were good. I liked the setup. So yeah, and I made the move to Forest.
So when it became clear that, Nottingham Forest, you two were going in separate directions, you kind of was in that situation already with Arsenal, and at times in your career, I assume you've been in there again. So how does it feel to when it happened again, did you feel, okay, this is just really part and part of football, I can get through this? Or did you kind of think, why me again?
Yeah, Forest was different to Arsenal, really. Arsenal was, it's sad, but you're more acceptant of Arsenal one because you're an elite club. Yeah, you kind of. Forest was more annoying because I've gone from a club where there's been one manager for 20 years to a club that's had the same like 20 managers in 1 year. Cheltenham, the most unstable club. It's a good club, don't get me wrong, like a really good club. I did really enjoy my time there. Got some great, met some great people. But the first team level, the management situation, you're just trying to impress different people every odd month, and it's difficult when you're a young player. I think when you're established first team pro, it's hard anyway. But when you're a young player trying to break in, and I made my debut there, and I was in around the first team, and it was a good club to be in around. But you'd come in, and then it'll be another manager, and it'll be another one. And to be fair, other than really when I was there, other than Stuart Pearce, to an extent, none of them really gave the young lads too much of a chance. It took for the academy manager, who I still talk to now, like, brilliant guy. He was interim a couple of times, and he gave a couple of boys their debuts, and then that kind of helped them to establish themselves in the first team. So, but the managers, the permanent managers, didn't really do much for the young players there, and the academy they've got there is like really good. And luckily now they're starting to reap the rewards from it. And the gutting thing about that was Forest. They had no manager when I left, and I think the academy manager was again like in his third spell as interim boss, and he said to me, "Look, I'd love to give you another deal, but I just think I can't. While there's a new manager potentially coming in, and you need to go out and get football." And I said, I fully respect that. And it happened so that they brought in a French manager that the season I left, or the time I left, and like a lot of the boys I've been playing with in the younger, like to the 23s games, but I've been out on loan a couple of times, but who I've been around with, and like they're good players, but I knew I was of that level. They got their debuts and they're still playing now. So it's, at least what I said, is a lot of it sometimes is timing, opportunity. If I'd have stayed there another year or been a bit younger, I could have,
into place. Yeah,
I might still be there now playing regularly in the Championship, but it weren't to be. And that's just how it is. Sometimes you got to accept that football. Sometimes you can try and manipulate situations, but a lot of it is that you got to try and, when you get them opportunities, just take them. And some people get more opportunities than others, but yeah, that was the sad thing, really. I thought, this guy's come in and he's given so many people their debuts, and even if they weren't to carry on playing at Forest, they play enough games to then say, I'm kind of established. Because establishing yourself in the first team now, in this day and age, can take you about 10, 15 games. Back in the day, you needed like 100 games.
100 career appearances.
Now, you make 15 appearances in the Champ, you can get a move for like £7 or £8 million. So it's that was a shame, really. It was so close, yet so far, if you know what I mean. But I just, like I said, that's just how it is. No one's fault. It can happen.
Yeah. So, like you said, at base level, it's just a funny old game of opinions. I guess by then, obviously, keeping up with this interview, by now you've obviously left Arsenal. You've spoke a bit about it was a culture shock at Forest, dropping deep for the ball and going for long balls. But was it a real shock to the system experiencing non-league football? Like, obviously leaving Forest now and just trying to establish yourself on the non-league circuit, because again, for me, you had the physical capabilities to do that, but you've mentioned the culture shock. Was it a shock to the system? Because I never see the ball on the floor whenever I watch non-league, to be fair with you.
To be fair, no, Forest gave me the best education, and that's why I'm probably grateful for the people there, is that they taught me another side to the game that I probably didn't have, but then I tried to add it to what I did have. And non-league is a culture shock, yeah, but I think that I mentioned it earlier, the margins between non-league and, I'd say, up to maybe the bottom end of the Champ, top end of League One, aren't massive difference at all. I think the top end of the Champ to the Prem, okay, you need quite a lot more, maybe a bit more about you, but non-league, you've got some players, and you'll see it more often, that players in non-league can go on and go up and play at the top level because the talent is there. It's just about the consistency. And for me, it was just about going there, the style of play, adapting to it to a bit. And then once you're there, like, your talent kind of will will notice, if anything, that your foundations will serve you well. And that's what I found at non-league, really. I thought, as long as I go in and I run around, eventually I'll get the ball and my quality will show, whether it be with a goal, an assist, or stuff like that. And that's kind of been my mantra with it. But then it comes to a point where players can do that, but then they've got to do it week in, week out. And that's what gets you out of non-league, if anything. You've got to be consistent. And you don't even have to play like 10 out of 10 every game. You can be solid like 7, 8 out of 10. But as long as you show that consistency, you'll get noticed. Because you see so many players in non-league, 1 week, 9 out of 10, best player you've ever seen. And then the next week, disappear. And it's just that level of that consistency. But Forest did me well to teach me that side of the game. And then I thought in non-league, I was just really enjoying playing like senior football, regardless if it's a crowd of 30,000 or 3,000. I knew that I just wanted to play senior football week in and week out with points on the line.
It meaning something else.
Promotions, relegations. I just wanted to play that, and I was just enjoying it like that. Wasn't really thinking about it, but then it got to a point I thought, actually, look, I'm good. I'm more than good enough to play a bit higher than this. Seeing that, and I saw that in a lot of other players in non-league as well. But it's just about having that determination, discipline, just to keep going at it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Have you always had a full-time deal at all of these clubs?
I've only been part-time once. When I left Forest, the first time I went to Chelmsford, and I was part-time.
What was
That was
that?
difficult. Yeah, the football-wise, it was one of the most enjoyable seasons because I had a really good team. I really enjoyed it. Just like the lads were brilliant. We had a successful season, but obviously it was difficult not being full-time because I just known that my whole life, and actually enjoying the football that much made me kind of want full-time football even more. But yeah, that was difficult. Again, that was just down to in the summer I'd left Forest and I thought I was going to sign for Blackpool, but it was another one of those ones where managers kind of mess you around a bit. He kind of, to be fair to him, he's a good manager, Gary Bowyer, and they got promoted that year. So I'd say no disrespect to him. I said I still respect him. He's a good guy, but kind of the conversations was I'm going to sign a deal there, and that would have been in League Two, and I could have just gone again. But in the end, he kind of not led me on a bit, but didn't really work out, and then it kind of killed me a bit in pre-season, and I was struggling for a club then, and Chelmsford is just local for me, so I just decided to play locally. Really, I kind of lost love of football. I didn't really care that much anymore, and then as soon as I started playing, you kind of enjoy it again, and then you come serious, and then you do well, and then by the end of that season, I thought, yeah, go on, I'm gonna go full time again. Yeah.
I mean, it's lovely to see. Yeah, man. I mean, football could always break anybody. It's nice to see you got your love for the game back and whatnot, because that's difficult. I've noticed that you've actually had time to get a degree, and that's since you've said you've only been part-time once, made me admire you more, because I know you said footballers have a lot of free time, but it must be difficult around the degree. What made you think of getting a degree in general?
Yeah, like, to be fair, like, I've always been done all right at school, and obviously I left school. Obviously, I had GCSEs, but then most of my friends were getting like A levels. Maybe some were going to university, some were working. But I thought to myself, like, kind of, if I've got the time, like, just kind of educate yourself a bit more. And to be fair to the PFA, they very good, help fund like courses. I took on like just a sports science course. Took me quite a few years to finish, but in the end, I've done it, and it might serve me well in the future, whatever I really want to do. Like, it's there for me. I learned a lot. I had some good experiences there, and I achieved something. And it can be done. Like, I encourage anyone that you have that time. And don't get me wrong, a lot of the time it's to recuperate, recovery. Because I said football, you get the banter about how you only work like a few hours a day, like it's a nice easy life, and it's not. It's like, don't get me wrong, it's the best life, and I wouldn't deny that. But physically, it can be demanding, and the last thing you want to do is open a textbook or a lecture online or something like that. But no, I'm glad I did it. It opened me up to a lot of things. And yeah, like I said, it's not. I don't know. I might not ever go down that route, but it's something I've got just in case I ever did. So yeah.
That makes sense, man. And like I said, like you said, better yet, and I agree, is that people should explore what they want to do, regardless of what you want to do after football, regardless of whatever stage you're at. Finally, I'd like to ask you, because I always ask people this: if you had your time again from the very beginning, or at any what you would deem significant moment in your career, if there is anything, would you do anything again? Would you not have done something? Would you have done something? Would you have tried something a bit more or a bit less? Or yeah.
Good question. Don't have many regrets, but probably the only one thing I'd say, and like, said, look, everyone's like, you can't ever plan everyone's career, but I'd say if I was to go again, advise the younger me, and it might sound contradictory because obviously I'm a massive Arsenal fan. I've preached how much I love Arsenal. Is that when I was offered a pro, not signed it and gone possibly somewhere else, because I think I was coming into a time at Arsenal where, and you can't see it when you're there, but you look back at it now, where it was almost like the transition of from Arsenal being really successful to being kind of the team that would just sneak into the top four. And I think there was more pressure on the boss by then, and you saw gradually like the graduates from the youth not really. I mean, there was Jack, but they had some players in that youth teams, and that could easily. And I don't want to put disrespect on anyone that's in there now, like the young kids that are playing now, because there are some that are really good. I like, but are they as good as the players that I was coming through with? I don't know if they are. I think if you were to put some of those players in the youth teams now, them young players, that they would be in the first team. So I think it was more around our time. It was difficult. Don't get me wrong. You could get the odd Carling Cup game, maybe like some of the lads come on in the Champions League and stuff. But in terms of the amount to get someone, like I said, I don't want to disrespect anyone. Someone like now playing in the first team, trying to think. Not Saka, because I think he's very good. A couple of the other lads that I've played a few games regularly, I think to myself, don't get me wrong, they're very good players and they'll have a good career. But there was players I was coming through with who I'd say were better, but they just didn't get that chance or didn't get the 10, 15 games they needed to establish themselves. And I say, and some did. I'll give an example, like Serge. Serge Gnabry was in my age group. We could all see it, how good he was. Like, he come and he's a great guy, like proper nice guy. I really like him as a person, but as a player, he was so good, and he didn't really get the chance. And I thought to myself, by the time he got released, I wasn't really at the club, but I thought to myself, there's nothing really wrong with him. He's got a good attitude, he's got all the talent in the world. But that's what I mean. They weren't getting opportunity, and it does not surprise me one bit now that he's at the top level, banging goals for Bayern Munich, and it wouldn't surprise me to see him push on again. And that's what I mean. Was it the club's fault? In a way, it was, because they've got to recognise that. But I understand they were in a transition phase as a club, so gone off on a bit of a tangent, but going back.
No, carry on, man. This is great to hear. Carry on, man.
Going back to me, I would have not signed there as a pro. Don't get me wrong, I had some of the best years and I learned so much and I met some great people. But I look at my peers, other people who are at maybe what you'd say lesser clubs, but they've gone on to have like maybe better careers now because them clubs gave them more of a chance. Yeah. And all they needed then was, like I said, 15, 20 games at senior level by the time they was like 19, 20, and then they go on to get another move. And at Arsenal, I think as much as they're brilliant at bringing players through at times, there's a lot of players
that slip,
don't make the grade, and like I said, it's difficult for them. So you get some players, unbelievable players, and again, I'll refer back to they've been taught to play one way. So then once they're not good enough for Arsenal, or Dean's not good enough for Arsenal, it's difficult for them to go somewhere else. A lot of the foreign boys were lucky in a sense because they could just go back to their native country because there's still a big name out there. So someone like Serge, he went back to Germany, and don't get me wrong, like I said, he was a brilliant player and he's worked his way back up again really well. And there was other players who did that, but a lot of the English players who are so talented had to go a different path. And some of them have done really well, worked their way back up. But there's others who struggled. And I think, and that was just the club, really. So, I'd just say that, really. I thought when I was 16, just could have gone maybe somewhere else. And I could have had my pick of clubs as well. By 16, I think I was England, youth international. I'd been playing really well throughout the age groups, and I know Arsenal would they wanted me to sign as well, but if I'd have gone somewhere else, might have been different. But at the same time, I like this in my boyhood club. I loved it when I was full time there. It was brilliant. Just down at, I wouldn't have been able to train with the first team and have all those experiences. And then it's like you never know really. There's no right or wrong way of mapping out a career. Just like I said, it can happen any way possible.
Yeah, you're right on that. It's funny you mentioned Gnabry because he's actually the reason I started doing this whole YouTube stuff because, like I said, I used to go and watch the players and I couldn't understand it. And for me, I really had a bad feeling about Gnabry leaving when he was allowed to go to the Olympics and Iwobi wasn't. No disrespect to Iwobi, but that told me that Iwobi's staying to be part of first team plans. You're not. So you probably pushed Gnabry to the point where he just had to keep it moving. I know that was the final question, but I forgot to mention this earlier. Did you and a number of first team boys not get to train with Neymar, etc. at one point? I could be wrong, but I'm sure I remember that.
Yeah, no, we did. It was 2012 because of Brazil were over for the Olympics, so they come and trained. To be fair, that was one of the best things about London Colney is that a lot of teams would train there. So England would train before games. Barcelona was trained there before Champions League final. So I wasn't there at the time, but I remember some of the boys getting to watch Barcelona train, and like, so you get that opportunity even just to watch at close hand players like Messi, and then we were lucky enough to train with Brazil, and that was brilliant. Like, you know, they were just their culture's it's just so fun. Like, even their training, like relaxed but fun. Obviously, they have the quality of players, but it was like they were just having a kickabout with their friends in the park, but it was serious at the same time. So like you had like Neymar, they had a really strong team. I don't know if they won the Olympics. I don't think they won it, but I think they were proper going for it. Had Thiago Silva, Marcelo, like Champions League winners. That quality of player, they were so good. But they were good people as well. Like this is just random kind of people, like youth team kids turning up in a training session. I know some people will be like, "Oh, what's going on here?" But they were very nice, like welcoming, just smiling, cracking jokes, stuff like that. So yeah, they were, and obviously like you see them, how good they are. Like you said, like someone like Neymar, just the way they move differently with the ball. You know what I mean? It's with Brazilians, there's something about them. You know what I mean? The way they move the ball is just like
It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a different way, and you learn stuff from it as well. You take even little bits out of like an hour training session, just like the way they played. Yeah, that was really good.
I mean, yeah, man. I mean, throughout of this, you've actually, this is actually my favorite interview I've done so far, and I'm not just saying that because you're here. You've said a wealth of things. You've dropped a lot of gems that I didn't expect to hear and things, and you've given. And I'm sure when this comes out, there'll be a lot of people who their eyes are opened, and definitely because what we mentioned earlier with the COVID stuff. I mean, there's a bag of things you could be focusing on, but you've taken the time to do this with me, so I appreciate that. And thank you for your time, man. And I guess his details will be in the description. You can follow him and follow up what he's doing and things. But Josh, again, big massive thank you for doing this.
Yeah, no problem. Like I said, it's good to speak. Just said, well, I've got time. Hands good to speak about these things, share like experiences. Obviously, kind of seeing a lot of things. Like many people sometimes aren't lucky enough to see. So it's always good to share.
No worries, man. Thank you very much. Take care, and we'll talk again.
No worries, bro. All the best.
Peace.